And welcome back to the channel, everybody. ASAP Grim here, and this is the continuation of my blind playthrough of RDR2 in 2025. I'm recording this episode as of 6 o'clock in the morning, the day you're supposed to be watching it. This is Tuesday's episode, and so it's probably going to release at 4 p.m. my time instead of the normal 8 a.m. I'm at Central Time, so Central U.S. So I know Arthur is underweight, so we're going to eat something. And then I'm going to kind of tell you what the plan is. First of all, I'm a little bit late on this because my weekends is when I normally record several episodes to get a jump start on the week. And my weekends have been busy lately, and that's a little unusual for me. So that I think is going to be clearing up in the near future. But until then, it may be that I need to skip Wednesdays sometimes, or you get a late episode like I'm going to do today. If we look at Arthur's player status, he is underweight. Last episode we ended completing the Jeremiah Compton side mission, and so after we eat we're gonna head for camp because it says that I still have a reward waiting for me from Kieran, so I want to see if I can go ahead and get that checked off so it disappears from my to-do list. And we're going to probably talk to Javier about the robbery mission that he has. Eat biscuits. Baked beans. And crackers. All right, guys, let's see here. Let's go ahead and head back to camp. Arthur has been awake for a whole day. We're gonna have him sleep, or go through today also and sleep at nighttime again. So he's just gonna have to will his way through it. Go. So, keeping up, since we're on the road, I'm going to be talking current events again. One of the things I like about doing this, I realize it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it puts down, like, it's almost like a diary or a journal. It's... Nope. I keep running into you, bro. And it records what my opinions are live in the moment. So I talked about what my stance was on Ukraine last episode, and I was really happy with how Trump and J.D. Vance handled Zelensky, and I gave all my reasons why, right? Well, these past couple days, we've been able to see how things have, how the American people as a whole feel about it. And apparently the polling is very strong that more people align with me than otherwise. But tonight is supposed to be the State of the Union address, and there's a lot of saber rattling and a lot of, moving pieces when it comes to the governments of the world. So the population, the American population, has spoken. If the polling is accurate, and I have no reason to think that it's not, it's multiple different polls showing the American people are fed up with this. And there's a whole list of reasons why, from believing that Ukraine pushed Russia into an invasion. I mean, that's out there. That theory is out there. And I have enough background to understand why that theory exists and what the underlying reasons are. To just flat out being like, it's not our business. We're throwing trillions of dollars at this, and we got our own country to fix. To the idea that this could lead to World War III, and me or my kids could wind up getting dragged into this, so I'm done. Get a peace solution right now. In fact, the polling shows that the majority, not only do they want a quick end to the war as opposed to supporting Ukraine fighting for as long as it takes, but they also are completely in support of Russia keeping whatever land that it has captured so far. That's a really big shift from just a couple years ago, or even, gosh, I think even this time last year. I think it was just 1 year ago. The population has really shifted towards the things that I've been talking about. But then, so the population has spoken, but then you have the governments of the world, and they're the ones that got their fingers in the cookie jar, I believe. They're the ones who have vested interests for their own selfish gain, more so than a warped worldview. I think it's both. I think they have a warped worldview and misunderstandings of who's who, and that they're a little bit stuck in the past. But mostly I think they just got sticky fingers, and they all got operations set up in Ukraine that benefit them personally and professionally as politicians. That's what I think, and I think there's a lot of high-level corporate money involved in this, just the whole gamut, you know. So that stuff is weighing in now as kind of a counterbalance to Trump's very popular position. So there's your counterpoint. You have Trump holding a very popular position, and then you have these other governments that represent the elites that have a lot of resources. And I think in the next couple days, we're going to see how this pans out. So I'm excited to see the news for today, for example. There's the flower. Take cigar. Okay, so we got to smoke a cigar. Can't get the camera to back off there. Okay. There we go. Look, here's another one. I can't seem to get the camera to tag that one. So let's check and see if Kieran's mission ticked off. Oh, I did that wrong. Well, it didn't. So that makes me think it is, in fact, this cigar right here. I can examine the flower but not take it. Pamphlet. What's in that little box there? I can't reach into this. Okay, so these boxes are for photographs to rest up against. Well, darn, man. I might have to see if I can figure that out off screen, or oh, look, it's gone. Well, doggone it. What in the Sam Hill's going on here, boys? I'll have to probably look that up. Where is, or what is, Kieran's gift? There's gun oil. That's probably it. Let's go around there. Okay, so I can access the gun oil, but I got to use some gun oil. So before talking to Javier, we're going to go shoot some deer up. And that might be the bulk of today's episode, because we'll probably look around for like mint also. Yeah, I think I want to do that. So what that means is we got to head back up to the original base. Horseshoe Overlook, right around this area, because that's where the big river is. Check that again. And that's where you find a lot of mint. These are railroad tracks. Take that off. We're wanting to get down into this area, I guess. Okay.
Good morning.
And let's see how our weight is. Still underweight, but it's only been a few minutes since I ate a bunch. Oh, before we leave, maybe we could take a look and see if there's any stew ready. I don't think so. Shouldn't be ready until afternoon, right? But we can grab some coffee. I'm finally starting to figure out where this stuff is at. Man, it always takes me such a long time. It's like the way my brain works and how I learn stuff. I don't learn like the way I describe it is I don't learn in a mathematical way a lot of the time. Like most people that would learn this camp, they would use, it would be like logic. They would set landmarkers like this big tree and remember that their bunk is to the right of that, and then how everybody else is set up counterclockwise. You know, you got the lakefront right there. That to me, that's like logic, right? And I do use logic a lot in other things. But when it comes to directions, that's more the way my brain works is I call it sitting in the stew. I just sit and absorb how something is, and over a period of time, familiarity just builds up. I don't know why. I have to make my brain, I have to make a conscientious decision to do it the other way. I'm capable of it, but it's not my natural reaction. I have to actually, it's like a discipline has to be applied. It's weird. I'm not necessarily a fan of it. I've seen a lot of drawbacks and not much gain. Go. Get by. There we go. Yeah, so today's news, I think, should be real interesting as far as getting any other developments or listening to the people that have kept me so well informed lately and what kind of information they've dug up. That's why I listen to them, is that they look into more details than what I get. And I'm not someone who really actually knows how to use Twitter very well. I go to other sites where people who know how to use Twitter post relevant stuff for me on a routine basis. Where'd this one go? I'm looking to fire this gun enough times that it warrants cleaning. I should have waited on that deer, to be honest. We're going to leave the corpse because it'll begin to decompose immediately. We're just going to take the skin, and I guess the way that this system works is even though you see meat on the skeleton, if you skin it, you have meat that goes into your satchel. So I think what it's considering is that you are stripping the edible part of this deer when you skin it. So it doesn't feel like a waste to me. Whatever is left that you sell is what the taxidermist uses to make other products, I suppose.
You all right, girl?
Yep. And then, of course, tonight continuing my thought there, tonight we have, as I mentioned earlier, we got the State of the Union address. Now this could be extremely interesting. Let's talk about this for a minute. Might as well, right? The rumor is that Trump is either going to straight up withdraw us, or he's going to suggest to Congress to withdraw us from both the UN and NATO. Now, from what I'm hearing, the way that the agreement, like what's cooked into the way the agreement works, is that you need, I think it's a supermajority of Congress in order to withdraw. So it's, in other words, it's not, from what I'm hearing, it's not something Trump has the authority to just unilaterally do like he can in executive order. Now, I don't know if I'm right about that. That's just simply what I'm hearing. So I'm going to predict that if he says anything at all, it will be a suggestion for Congress to consider this. Now, from that point, what do I think might happen? How do I feel about it? Well, I think it's probably... Well, let me say how I feel about it first. I don't like either one of those organizations. I think it's a one-sided deal. In fact, whenever I was in the military, there were times, depending on who was in charge, that we had a rule called all, some, or none. And what that meant is that when you wore your dress blues, it was the troop's option to wear all of his ribbons, some of his ribbons, or none of his ribbons. Ordinarily, the default rule is that it's mandatory for you to wear every single ribbon you've ever received. You can, like, you're out of uniform if you don't, and there are some potentially significant repercussions that come with that. So all, some, or none was usually a little bit odd, and I don't even really know why people, like, what the motivating factor for that was. But I do know that if I received that option, I took my UN ribbon off. I don't like those people. I think it's weird. The people, the troops, I have a lot of respect for, like a mutual professional respect, right? They're putting their lives on the line, just like I am. The troops I absolutely love. I used to salute UN officers, and I caught flack for that from some of my coworkers. They didn't like that I saluted foreign officers, but to me, it was my choice, and I was backed up by this legally as to whether or not to render a salute, and I did it out of professional courtesy. But the government and what they use the United States for, to fund their own defenses, basically, I don't feel like we get as much out of that as what it costs. I suppose it used to be that the logic was, you give us a whole ton of money to the United Nations and we allow you to have a boatload of bases over here. That's what I think was kind of the reasoning and the concept. And I'm saying that's a raw deal. Maybe at one point in time, like around the Cold War era, that was really important and strategically required. I could see me feeling differently if it's 1983.
Load up.
You know, potentially. But it isn't. It's 2025 and the Soviet Union's been gone for a long time. As a matter of fact, I would say, and I think there are certain people out there that would probably laugh at me for this, but I would say that if you're looking for the greatest representation or remnants of this old Soviet Union, then look at the United States. I think they slipped a poison pill in us. It's called the Long March Through the Institutions, and communism and socialism have become very popular over here because the Soviet Union, along with some other people later on, like China, in my opinion, have run influence operations or ran influence operations over here that got a snowball effect going and that had an inevitability to it. Yeah, so anyway, to get to the point, if it was suggested that we would totally depart and break away from NATO and the United Nations, I would be for that. Now, I want to say that's a big move. You're talking about abandoning an alliance. There's a reason people form alliances. And when it comes to defense and protection, it's almost like housing insurance. You know, normally if you're paying your monthly insurance bill, whether it's for your house or for your car, it really is only benefiting the company that you're paying. 98% of the time, they don't have to pay out squat. You're just throwing money at them. They're there for the just in case. And that just in case, if your house burns down or you have to get your roof replaced, that's enough money that it could really end you financially. So that's why people pay it. Oh, we're going to want the rolling block for this. Rolling block. Oh, darn it. I had such a clean shot, man.
Yep.
Oh, there he is. He stopped.
Slow up now.
You ain't doing too well. That was your last meal and you didn't even get to eat it. Okay, he's a 3-star still. I think the water's what's making him, his head bob back and forth.
Easy.
So what I'm trying to get to is that I think I would want to hear an in-depth briefing, like listen to a podcast or something that presents the contrary position and why it would be foolish before I gave my final answer. I hope that makes sense to everybody. My gut instinct is I don't like NATO. I don't like the UN. I think we get robbed blind and we don't get enough out of it for what we put in. So I want out.
Okay, girl.
But I would want to hear a contrarian point of view that's well-reasoned and well-communicated before I were to make that choice, because it is kind of a drastic choice. Okay, now having illustrated to you what my opinion is, you know, so that transparency. I don't want to virtue signal to anybody. I don't even want to hide maybe my own foolishness. Perhaps it's really foolish to leave the UN. I want to present a regular person and their take on it whenever they're not at the upper echelons of decision making to reflect how at least some of the population is feeling and why. I want to be really honest, man. I've been we're in what's called the age of authenticity, and I'm telling you guys, at 49 years old, I've been representing that position since the early 90s. I have such a strong commitment to being honest. I oftentimes hurt my own self and the perception of other people's eyes. I don't look out for how I'm perceived. I just am really honest about what I think. I really embrace that whole honesty is the best policy idea. So, oh yeah, we're looking for mint. Let's, okay, we got something up here. So, so I wanted to give you that take, even though it might be a dumb take. It might be. I don't really know. That's why I would want to hear a contrarian view. But what I'm guessing is that Trump is using this, like he is using tariffs. You have people out there who are arguing that Trump's use of tariffs are retarded because they're looking at it from an economic perspective, as though Trump is inviting trade war. Well, that's not correct. Wild mint, good. He's using that as a diplomatic tool to gain leverage. For instance, if we were, and I've mentioned this before, but let's continue with the analogy. If we were to tariff Canada and Mexico, does that risk putting us into a trade war? Well, I guess from the technical sense, yes. And that's what these other people are countering, is that that's never good for economies, and it's not the free market and things of that nature. Well, for one thing, the founding fathers were all for it, so I think you're off base there. But for another, pragmatically speaking, when it comes to the practical world, both Canada and Mexico provide about 1.5% of our economy through trade. In other words, we don't bring a whole lot in from them at all. Whereas each of them are in the 80 plus percentile of their entire economy is reliant upon American imports. I think with Mexico, it's north of 85%. With Canada, it's so bad that whenever they were really fearful that this was going to go into effect and get really nasty, there were Canadian companies talking about crossing the border and setting up shop over here because they simply can't afford to do business if we tariff them like that. Not because of the percentage of tariff that we're putting on them. It's not just that. It's because of the percentage of Americans that make up their customer base.
Okay then, girl.
They're highly, highly, highly reliant on being able to trade with us because most of their customers are here. And same with Mexico. The opposite is not true. So this trade war that you're speaking of doesn't exist. It's not a war. It would be like if the Congo were to declare war on the United States and force our hand to bomb them. That's not a war. That's an ass whooping. You know, they don't have the resources. It's not really, it's only a war in the technical sense. So Trump used that, knowing that he has all those leverages, to force both Mexico and Canada's hand in other unrelated areas. Border patrol stuff. Border security, let's call it that. Border security stuff. I think this is going to be the same thing. I think that we're going to threaten to leave the UN and NATO, which they're entirely dependent upon for their own defense. Their national budgets revolve around the assumption that the United States is going to provide the lion's share of their defense budget. So their money is eaten up elsewhere. If we bail on them, they're up the creek without a paddle, you know. And I think Trump is using this threat, and he's making it as official and real as he can. In other words, I don't think it's an empty threat. I think if they continue on the road that they're on, that it will increasingly push Congress towards maybe actually doing what Trump's asking them to do. Trump's putting it on the table as a serious consideration, which is important. And I think he's going to do that to drive concessions from Europe regarding peace between Ukraine and Russia. Because as the largest contributor to Ukraine's defense by far, the United States is flat sick of it. I detailed that earlier when we were talking about where the population is at. We are sick and tired of it. We don't even think, most of us don't even think that this is actually benefiting Ukrainians. That's another reason why we're pissed the F off about it. If you look at Americans and what our history is, maybe you're anti-American. That's fine. I understand biases and emotions. But if you were to make yourself, just for a split second, be emotionally and intellectually honest, you would find that American sentiment, you really should, the concept I'm talking about, you should go look at Flags of Our Fathers. It's a Clint Eastwood movie. And in Flags of Our Fathers, the Japanese man that led the defense of the islands, the general, he lived over here in the U.S. and went to school here. And he is telling, in the movie, he tells his upper command, he tells, oh, how does he do it? I don't know if he tells us, it might have been in his diary, you know, that all of the Japanese are being propagandized about how the Americans want to rape, pillage, and murder them. And so they need to fight to the death, because if they don't, we will kill them. And then whenever they run into us and find out how we treat their wounded, what kind of concern we have for humanity and for their well-being, even as our enemies, how much we take care of our POWs versus everybody else, it puts them into a position of cognitive dissonance, and they start to realize they've been lied to. Right now they're pissed at their own side because they were lied to. That's America. That is a part of the American tapestry and part of American values, and has been for a really long time. It is built in to the environment that we grow up in. So we're saturated in this idea. You might call it something of like, it's our version of trying to be noble of spirit, right? Now, look, I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that all Americans all the time are untouchable saints. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is a big part of our culture. We have deep concern for the well-being of the average person, because look at what we were birthed out of. It's a major part of how we think. And so that's what I'm describing here. A lot of us believe that your average Ukrainian is not seeing those weapons, not seeing munitions, not seeing any of the food or the first aid that this money is supposed to be bankrolling. We think it is being gobbled up by the people who are in charge of Ukraine, and that a significant cut is making its way back via laundered money to the people donating it. Our taxpayer dollars that we go out and work our 9-to-5s for are being used to line the pockets of elites in Ukraine and in America and in Britain and in Germany and in France, you know, and any other countries that are involved in this. And boy, I tell you what, you start getting that as a mainline sentiment at America, it is hard for me to think of something outside of enslaving other people, because we have a history of slavery that we've fought long and hard about that still affects us to this day in our social dynamics. Those two things, you want to talk about straight up angering and bringing forth the wrath of the American people so that we want to beat the hell out of you and eat your lunch and take your lunch money. That's it. That's it. You sow corruption in and you take all the money we've been giving it and take the food right out the mouths of the people we intend it for so that you can go buy a farging mansion or another boat. Boy, you're dead meat to us. You are on our blacklist. And that's the God's honest truth. For any of you that are sitting over there and there are people, there are opinions that are individualized, and there are opinions that represent how an entire nation feels, and I'm giving you the latter. You want to piss us off and make us into a buzzsaw that comes for your throat, you keep on with this stuff, because a lot of us, we think that's exactly what's going on, a lot of corruption. So I think that Trump is using the threat of this to, let's go ahead and head back to camp, I think, to create leverage that forces these nations to the negotiating table for a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine and stops the grift. So I'll summarize real quick. If the intent is to leave the UN and NATO, and that's a genuine, authentic request from Trump, I'm telling you, I'm for it. But I don't think that's what it is. I think he's using it like he did the tariffs in order to drive European nations to by threatening the removal of their military defense dollars from us that they rely so heavily on, to drive them to the negotiating table and allow a peace to be negotiated, in all likelihood brokered by Trump, between Putin and Zelensky. That's what I think is going on. Diplomatic threat in order to gain leverage. Excuse me, not diplomatic. Economic threat. I guess it would probably be more than economics because it's military support as well. In order to gain diplomatic leverage in another area. But we'll know, I think we'll know before the week is out. If you see a peace deal get signed this week, I can almost promise you that this was a part of it. If this is mentioned, this idea about leaving the UN and NATO is mentioned at the State of the Union address for Congress to seriously consider, and then I would say really before the end of the month. But I'm actually even expecting this week. You see a peace deal negotiated or significant discussions that indicate, yes, we are actually, this is an inevitable end, where all that's left is just a haranguing and getting the negotiations actually done. Then I can all but promise you that that's exactly what happened. We made a threat that forced their hand because those people don't want to give it up. They're making too much money off of it. Well, I see it as a mixture of things. I think I spoke about it earlier. Primarily, the players that are preventing peace are doing so in order to keep the grift up and keep making the millions of dollars and retain the political influence they have and secure the votes that they've got from special interests that are promising to bankroll their re-election campaign if they play ball here, right? I think that's the primary part of it. But then there's a segment within all of these different Five Eyes intelligence communities. Well, I can't say Five Eyes because I think China's part of that now, but the European and the American, let's say North American because Canada's part of it too, intelligence communities that believe Russia is the biggest threat to world peace and has been since the end of World War II. I think that's an archaic viewpoint. I can understand. I'm not even really I don't find maliciousness in that. I think these are career professionals that have been working for 60 to 70 years and whose careers were forged
Okay, my girl.
within the crucible of the Cold War. So they got an axe to grind and they have a worldview that is entrenched because it's like the Hatfields and McCoys. They've been at war with Soviet Russia for so long. It's difficult for them to see the world in any other way. That's my guess. I'm sitting here as someone who says Russia's no longer that threat. Now, I'm not saying Russia is our friend. I think Russia is out for Russia's interests. And I'm okay with that. I want the United States to be out for United States interests. I want England to be out for England interests, right? And I think that China is the one that is exhibiting the most global threat right now through their Belt and Rail initiatives and their influence campaigns in just about every nation on Earth. They're buying up of farmland all over the place. And with China, it's different. With Russia, I think that with old Soviet, I think you had a threat of an authoritarian regime ruling your life with a steel gauntlet and willing to use overt, brutal military force to do it. China is a different kind of threat. They're more cultural, and the authoritarianism is there, but I don't, as robust as their military is getting, I don't think their style over the centuries is that they want to engage in military warfare. They would rather engage in asymmetrical warfare through influence. I think if you read like Sun Tzu and stuff, you see that similar to what I was talking about being embedded in American culture, I think it's embedded in Chinese culture that the most skillful win is the one where no shots are fired. And so they think in these terms. There's like a point of pride in it. I'm no expert here. This is just what I've pieced together over the years as I've learned stuff. But I do think that China is more of a threat to our way of life and how we think in the West as both a competitor and somebody who has a more a radically different philosophy of how things should be run than Russia is. So I think that the intel communities are outdated.
Who's that?
Whoops. Oh, whoops.
Arthur! You're alive? That's good.
All right, so obviously we haven't gotten
Well, girl.
a mission done. We just did all the materials gathering, most of which I'm going to go donate to the camp. We're going to see if we can grab some stew. And in the next episode, we're going to
much of a storyteller, so forgive
talk
me
to
about
Javier.
I don't have much to say. Life's always confused me. I don't feel I understand it very much.
Bring me something soon if you can, Arthur. Yeah, I hear you.
Other human beings seem to understand why they were born, but
Well,
for me,
guess I should get my beauty sleep.
it seems like I was born to hurt
Not the best quality, I'm afraid.
and suffer myself.
Good job, Mr. Morgan.
That doesn't always seem like a really good reason. I wish there was another way.
I think what he's
Here
talking
in
about,
this land, I feel very stuck.
I think what he's talking about is probably significant. This is the camp starting to kind of question how they live, I think.
Just so.
Well, you know, I was thinking about recording multiple episodes today, but I don't think I'm going to. Partly because I like being on the road and talking about this kind of stuff. Even if it ends up like throwing viewers off and people don't want to watch it as much because they're like, oh my gosh, I come to watch YouTube to get away from this stuff. I can understand that, but I like it so much, I'm going to do what I do, right? It's just, there's an inevitability to it. It's kind of hard for me not to talk about it. These are the things that I'm passionate about and that I find interesting. So I'm not going to record the next episode until tomorrow because I want to see what happens with the news today so that I can comment on it. I really like this idea. It's not like we're going to stick with this forever. But right now, with this development with Ukraine, I like this idea of me recording what I'm thinking is happening on a daily basis, and then the next day seeing how it turns out and whether that affects what was I right on, what was I wrong on, does it change my position at all? Just simply because I think that kind of stuff is important. In the same way that time capsules are important, you know, or archaeological finds where you can read about what people were dealing with and what they thought about it at the time. So I like the entire thing appeals to me is what I'm saying. Let's take a look at where Arthur's at. I bet he's still underweight. Yeah. So I ate stew. Let's eat 2 more of these. And maybe 1 thing of crackers, and I think that'll be good. We'll go to sleep, we'll see what he looks like, what his status is in the morning. Oh shoot, I forgot to clean my guns, guys. We can't go to sleep yet. What are we at? 47 minutes? Yeah. All we gotta do is ride out of camp a little bit. I have done some shooting today. I should be able to clean them. And then I can come back and pick up this extra gun oil I got.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Carbine repeater. Oh no, man. Whoops. Okay, well, what I will have to do then is just discard 1. That was always an option, I just don't like to waste. Where would I find that at? These are provisions, tonics, ingredients, materials. It doesn't give me a discard option. SOB, man, I'm kind of pissed off. That's what this whole episode has been for. Oh, son of a gun. I almost said it, man. I'm really close to cursing right now. All right, well, Arthur hasn't had a rest in a long time. I guess I'm not gonna be stubborn about it. I'm gonna go ahead and let him go to sleep, and then what we're gonna do is next episode we're gonna ride to the fence and sell it. And then come back, get this cleared off, and then talk to Javier. In 3 hours until morning. We're going to sleep till noon. He really desperately needs to sleep. Okay. God bless, man. So, yeah, we're back to having those problems. All right, guys, we're going to save it. Story. And save game. And overwrite. And again, I'm Aesop Grim. Thank you for coming by the channel. I hope you like what you saw. More importantly, I hope all is well in your neck of the woods. And I'll see you in the next episode where this story continues.